Then Raghunath Das Goswami had said in verse 1 that we're supposed to be one-pointed. And in this verse, he talks about Lord Chaitanya and Guru. Now, he had already talked about Guru in verse 1. What did he say in verse 1? We were supposed to see Guru as, what did he say again? I forget. No. What did he say? Our well-wishing friend. Thank you, thank you. So we're supposed to see Krishna as our well-wishing friend. Guru. See, I can't even have a brain at all. We're supposed to see Guru as our well-wishing friend, but he hadn't said anything about Lord Chaitanya. So in this verse, he tells us that we should see the son of Mother Sachi as the son of Nanda Maharaj. And I don't know why he talks about Lord Chaitanya's mother and Krishna's father, but he says we should see Lord Chaitanya as Krishna. Then we're one-pointed. So we have to worship Mahaprabhu, but we see Mahaprabhu as Krishna. In fact, of course, we should see all the avatars as Krishna, which answers the question that Prabhupada poses in Bhagavad Gita 1865 purport. You can look it up. So this is our mood. We see all of Krishna's avatars as there's Krishna taking the form of Nrsimhadev, Krishna taking the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna taking the form of Ramachandra. Then we're one-pointed. And I found it interesting that Raghunath Das Goswami talked about Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj, in this verse. So our oil painting, I wanted to show Krishna, the son of Nanda, but he also talked about Radha and Krishna. So I also wanted to include Radharani. And I was thinking, well, what Leela has Radharani and Krishna, the son of Nanda Maharaj? And there's one in Hungary, painting in Hungary, of serving out food, where Radharani is serving out food to Krishna and Nanda Maharaj is there. But I thought there's already a painting of that. So we decided to depict this Leela from a Brahma Vaivarta Purana, which is also explained by Prabodhananda Saraswati in a commentary to Gita Govinda, about the wedding of Radha and Krishna in Bandiravan. And in our book, we quote that whole pastime. All right, so that's how we see Lord Chaitanya. Now, how do we see Guru? We're already told we see Guru as our friend, but how do we see Guru and be one-pointed to Krishna? And that is, we see Guru as Krishna's friend. I see Guru as very dear to Krishna. So I'm still one-pointed to Krishna, but I see Guru as very dear to Krishna. So this difficulty of how to see both love for Guru, unprecedented love for Guru, and unprecedented love for God is here taken together. And we might, how do people do this in other traditions, for example, also? Because, you have in Islam, they want to worship Allah, but they're also worshiping the Prophet. Or in Christianity, they're worshiping God, and they're also worshiping Jesus. Of course, many times they just say, well, Jesus is God. So we're not saying Guru is God. We're saying Guru is very dear to God. And here we have in this drawing how the associates of Radha and Krishna, they're pulling the devotees out of the ocean of material life. So we're seeing like that Guru is very dear to Krishna and Guru is very dear to me. But Prabhupada would say, I am not your friend. Krishna is your friend. I am your friend because I am giving you Krishna. Okay, so again, these are first two verses of qualification for going on the path to Krishna and Vrindavan. Now we're going to go to the third verse of qualification. Everyone together? Yadi cherava samvrajabu visaragam pratijanur yuva dvandvam tachchet paricharitum aradabhilashe Swarupam Shri Rupam Saganami Hatasya Grajamapi Sputam Premna Nityam Smaranam Atadatvam Shinumana. Listen, O mind, if you desire in every birth to reside in the land of Raja with loving attachment and to serve the youthful couple Sri Sri Radha Krishna in close proximity, then clearly remember and offer obeisances to Sri Rupa and his associates in Vrindavan and to Sri Rupa's elder brother, Sri Sanatana. All right, again, getting our compass right on this path, life after life. Does that sound very attractive? Anybody want to sign up for the Hare Krishna movement here? Life after life. What does this mean? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in looking at this word, pratijanur, He says that generally it takes many lives, bahunam janmanam ante, but with mercy it can go very quickly. But for qualification, we have to have this mood. And I like the way Prabhupada describes Rukmini. In Krishna book, Prabhupada writes, if it were not possible in this lifetime to gain Krishna's favor by her austerities, she was prepared to die from such austerities and to undergo similar difficulties lifetime after lifetime. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that pure devotees of the Lord execute devotional service with great determination. What's that, Sanskrit? Dridavata, thank you. Such determination as exhibited by Rukmini Devi is the only price for purchasing Krishna's favor. So why do we have to have this determination for life after life? And this is kind of deep. There's a very short essay Ravinda Sri Prabhu wrote on japa, where he writes that in psychology they usually say that if there's a breach in a relationship, there's fault on both sides. However, in the breach in our relationship with God, the fault is only on our side. And this is something that is very hard for us to accept, frankly. To really accept. Again, saradam bandhitva. It requires humility. So if you just imagine, I gave this example one time and someone came up to me after the class and said that literally that was her situation. Hare Krishna. But just imagine if a man has cheated on his wife with 50 women. I think she said it was only 27 women. But anyway, if a man had cheated on his wife with 50 women and comes home and says, "Hi, I'm back." Is she going to let him in? No. Now, she might be happy to see him. She might say, "Well, thank you for coming back." And when we first come back to Krishna, he is very excited. And by the way, this doesn't matter what tradition you're in. It's a general experience that when people first dedicate themselves to God, they get something C.S. Lewis talks about. He says they get great feelings of spiritual happiness and easy conquest over temptation. It's like you get a little free sample. You see those in the grocery stores, little free sample? Here you go. Because Krishna is very excited that we've come back and we said, I'm back. I want to surrender to you. I want to get clean. I want to make my life holy. He gets very excited. But does he let us in? No, he doesn't let us in. He makes us wait. And he does what to us? He tests us. There's an interesting story that I read about a Christian monastery hundreds of years ago, where the monks would take 2 levels of vows. They would take an initial level and then a more serious level some years later. So one monk, and in those days, the monasteries were hotels and restaurants. They weren't regular hotels and restaurants. When people traveled, and they didn't travel as much as they travel today, obviously, they had to go by horse or by ox. When they traveled, they would stop at a monastery, and then they would get a place to sleep and food to eat, and they would give a donation, and this was one way that the monasteries would maintain themselves. So one time, a family with a young girl had stayed at the monastery, and this monk, who had only taken his initial vows, became attracted to her, and he left with the family. And he was gone for many months. And then at a certain point, he just thought, I can't do this. I can't marry this girl. I've taken my initial vows. I can't do it. And he came back to the monastery, and he went to the father, to the abbot, and he said, "I want to come back." And he said, "Well, I'll take you back." He said, "Did you actually break your vows?" He said, "No." He said, "All right." He said, "I'll take you back, but it's up to all the brothers." So when they had, at the end of Mass, he took this brother and he said, "Do you all accept him back?" And the abbot looked and he could tell it was a little iffy, So he said to this brother, "You have to wait outside until everybody's ready to let you in." And it was the winter time in Europe. He gave him his wool cloak, and some of the brothers would come out and give him hot soup and things like that. But 3 days and 3 nights he waited out there in the snow, in the cold, and he just waited. And every few hours, he'd knock on the door. "Can I come in?" And after 3 days, all the brothers had compassion, and they let him back into the order. And if we are the ones who are at fault, we have to be willing to stay at the doorstep and wait. We cannot, we have never have the right to make a demand and say, "My Lord, you have to let me in now." I mean, sometimes the devotees joke with the Lord and say, I'm the most fallen, and so if you don't let me in, your claim to being the savior of the most fallen will be null and void, you know. But the devotees never demand. Like Mukunda, who heard that it would be 10 million births, and he said, yo, in 10 million births, I'll see the Lord. And then the Lord said, okay, come on. And then you may find it interesting that in verse 1, Raghunath Das Goswami seems to be very non-sectarian, saying we should love all the devotees of any tradition. And then in this verse he says, Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. So we've pictured here the Goswamis, Swarup Damodar. It's like their books are pouring jewels on us. Of course, one of my granddaughters saw this and said, Grandma, wouldn't that hurt your head if all the jewels... But at least at this particular time in human history, attaining Krishna in Vrindavan is going to be very difficult without the instructions of Swarup Damodar Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and of course, Raghunath Das Goswami. Can you attain this love for Krishna in the Sri Sampradaya? Can you attain it in Judaism and Islam? And can you? Well, yes. But are you likely to? No. You're not even likely. They're not even talking about it. Right? And people in those traditions who even talk about, you know, how God is really romantic, sometimes they get burned at the stake, isn't it? Right? You can't talk about God like that. So Swarup Damodar, Rupa, and Sanatan. If we really want to attain, and of course Raghunath Das Goswami, who doesn't include himself in his own verse, if we really want to attain spontaneous love for Krishna in Vrindavan. So what does this mean, spontaneous love for Krishna in Vrindavan? So Vaidhi Bhakti is following Krishna consciousness mostly out of intellectual conviction and fear. One is still half asleep. So one's holding on to the Bhagavad Gita and following, but one's really mostly asleep. And it's primarily intellectual conviction. Of course, even in Vaidhi Bhakti, there's so much taste, isn't there? Kevalananda Kanda. So we've all experienced that we're in a kirtan and there's some happiness that we can't explain by the musical expertise of the singers. We taste prasadam and there's a happiness we cannot explain by the ingredients. Right? We read the books and there's a happiness we cannot explain by the literary ornaments or even the philosophical expertise. Isn't that a fact? Right? We see a painting of Krishna and we feel a happiness that can't be explained by the artistic expertise. We experience something real, something authentic. I like to compare it to the difference between, you know, water, corn syrup, and mango flavor and real mango juice. And when you get something that touches the soul, we know it. We're like, wow, what was that? So even in Vaidhi Bhakti, we're getting these tastes of Krishna consciousness. But in Rag Bhakti, we've started, and you see in this picture, because this is just verse 3 of the Manah-siksa, where Raghunath Das Goswami is saying, Sa Ragam. But this is probably just the awakening of Raga. So see, he isn't out of bed yet. He's just kind of waking up. So when the first person first starts waking up, oh, I love Krishna, oh, I love Krishna as my son, or I love Krishna as my friend, or as my beloved, or as my master. And that emotion arises. Then the impetus for worshiping Krishna changes to that of joy. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, Urmila, this is just verse 3. You said this was a qualification and I haven't woken up to what my relationship is with Krishna. Do I have to leave? And the answer is no, because even if you just want to, you can understand Manah-siksa and go through, at least on some level, all of the instructions of Manah-siksa. Although we should understand that this book was primarily written for those who had awakened to their relationship with Krishna. So going back to Swarup Damodar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu especially taught the Ragmarg, or the path of spontaneous love, to Swarup Damodar. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in Jaiva Dharma that Swarup Damodar taught this in two separate ways. He taught an outer path to Vikeshwara Pandit and an inner path to Raghunath Das Goswami. The outer path is primarily composed of detailed mantras and meditations which would encompass many hours of the day and necessitate that one become basically a recluse. It would be very difficult to go through the outer path that was given to Vikeshwara Pandit and passed down to Dhanachandra Goswami if you were working in the world. if you were even a preacher in the world. The inner path appears externally just like Vaidhi Bhakti, but internally there are changes happening, which we're going to go through here in Manah-siksa. Now, the outer path and inner path are both bona fide. They were both taught by Swarup Damodar Goswami under the tutelage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Unfortunately, by Bhaktisiddhanta's time, the outer path had become perverted. Because the outer path, because it is an outer path, it can be imitated. It can be given to unqualified persons. The inner path cannot be, by its very nature, imitated. You can't parody the inner path. As you'll see, we're going to take our first 2 steps on the inner path today and our next 2 steps on Sunday. And you'll just see it's something you can't possibly fake. Whereas the outer path can be faked. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, seeing that the outer path was being faked and perverted, although he did bring in some elements of the outer path, he primarily taught the inner path. So we have a whole chapter dedicated to this in Manah-siksa. And we also refer to the Gaudiya Math logo, which we've kind of cleaned up a bit because the only copies we had were really hard to read. We changed the letters to Roman. We updated the printing press. Actually, Bhaktisiddhanta had 2 Gaudiya Math logos, and the second one he had an updated printing press, so we updated it again. And here you can see how Bhaktisiddhanta was doing the path of Vaidhi through deity worship, and the path of Raga through hearing Bhagavatam, as we were hearing this morning, through Kirtan, and the holy name in the center, Lord Chaitanya at the top, Guru, and Gaudiya meaning the Sangha at the bottom. Srila Prabhupada put this Gaudiya Math logo on the gates of our Mayapur temple. And in reading Manah-siksa, you realize, wow, this whole ISKCON movement is really meant to bring us on this inner path of spontaneous love to Krishna as given by Raghunath Das Goswami. I mean, even today we have people who say, well, Prabhupada didn't really teach spontaneous love, yes? I have to go here and there to get it. So very nice, this inner and outer path. Now, whether one is in Vaidhi Bhakti or Rag Bhakti, one is still doing all of the angas of bhakti externally. That's why it's called the inner path. Those who are only aware of the outer path, when they see those on the inner path looking just like those in Vaidhi Bhakti, they say, oh, there's no Rag Bhakti going on here. There's no spontaneous love going on here, because they're looking for something external that they can't see. The awakening of love for Krishna is like a bud that turns into a flower, and even each flower on the same plant is a little different. So when one starts awakening, Bhaktivinoda Thakur quotes a verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in his commentary on verse 3, which Srila Prabhupada translates in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as the awakening of love for Krishna in each of the rasas, looking at the 4 primary rasas here, as Krishna's servant, following Raktak and Patrak, as Krishna's friend, following who? Who would you follow as Krishna's friend? Sridham, Subal. Anybody else? Madhumangal, Ujjvala. And as Krishna's parent, you'd be following who? Yasoda. And you see Rohini, we have Rohini there with Balaram. Madhya Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj. Or in amorous love, following the gopis. So our painting for this verse, our artist titled, Come With Me. So as this is just the beginning awakening of raga, beginning awakening, this little idea of one's relationship with Krishna, we have everyone is seen here sort of from behind. And there's all the dust from the cows because it's still kind of hazy. And in this painting, we have the chief devotees in each of the 5 primary rasas. And again, if you say, well, I haven't yet come to that point, if you want to come to that point, you can certainly go through Manah-siksa. All right, so this is now the qualifications. Oh, goodness, what were the qualifications again? Can somebody remind me in these first 3 verses that we've been through? Anything? Who should we love? Can anyone tell me who we should love? Guru. Who else? Krishna, holy name. Holy places. Mantras. Devotees. Well, who devotees? Only the great devotees? All the devotees. The land of Vrindaban, good, and our mantras. And what else? What do we have to give up to be qualified? Pride. And we have to be willing to endeavor. Good. And we should give up identifying as either? All right. And instead we should all be Krishna's Secret agents and employees, yes. Okay, good. And how should we see Lord Chaitanya as? Krishna. And how do we see Guru? Our friend and Krishna's friend, all right? And then either we should have awakened our feeling for Krishna or be wanting to, and we should follow the instructions of Rupa, Sanatan, Swarup, Damodar. That also means don't make up your own process. Don't just say, oh, I am loving Krishna, I am going to dress like a gopi, and, you know, you can't just make up whatever you want. You have to love Krishna the way he wants. So that's our qualification. All right, are we ready to start the path? You ready? Are you sure? All right, I'm going to warn you. This is a heavy path. If anybody had warned me what the path was like when I first came, I might not have stayed. All right, we are going to go deeper and deeper and deeper into becoming authentic. We're going to give up all of our pride and duplicity. You sure you still want to go on the path? Anybody still want to go? Yes. Woohoo! All right, I've warned you. If you want to leave early, there is a back door. And if you want to leave early and just buy the book, you can go out this door and read it very quietly, very slowly on your own time. Okay? Today we're going to do the two gross obstacles, and on Sunday we're going to do the two very subtle obstacles. Now, although the two we're doing today are gross, they're very subtle if you're a materialist. So even though they're very gross things, they can still be a little subtle. But this is going to get down deep. This is deep heart surgery, folks. Okay? And I found in working on Manah-siksa, I worked on this book for 3 years, I couldn't read it like a novel. It wasn't like you could sit down and, read it in a night. I had to kind of read it and then, what do I do about that? What about that? Oh my. I just remember when I first came to the Hare Krishna movement, and I'd sit in the classes, and the devotees were always talking about those materialists. And I'd be sitting in the class going, yeah, those materialists. And after 2 months, I was in a Bhagavatam class, and I went, I'm one of them. So I'm just warning you folks, as you go through Manah-siksa, there's going to be a lot of mirrors. There's going to be a lot of self-recognition. There's going to be a lot of whoops. Uh-oh. What do I do about this? Oh, right. First one is about sound. Everybody together? Asad varta vesha visrijamati sarvasvaharini kata mukti vyagrana shrinu kila sarvatmagilani api twaktva lakshmi patirati mito vyomanayani Raje Radha Krishna Swarati Mani Dao Tvam Bhajamanaha. O mind, abandon the prostitute of mundane talks who plunders all intelligence. Do not listen at all to the stories of the tigress named Mukti, liberation, who devours all souls. Moreover, also give up attachment to the husband of Lakshmi, Sri Narayana, who only leads one to Vaikuntha. Instead, here in Vraja, serve Sri Sri Radha Krishna, who give one the jewel of their own love. So Vaiseshika Prabhu was talking about how today, talking about this morning, how important it is to hear this sound, talking and listening. How much do we really pay attention to what we say? I had a very interesting experience a while ago. A devotee contacted me about doing some service. Talked to me for about an hour, and about half the time, all he was doing was self-glorification. And I thought he probably has no idea that he's doing this. It was quite interesting. And when I got off the phone, I thought, I wonder how aware I am of what I say. What we say reveals our current state of consciousness. How much do we talk about ourselves and our life, how wonderful we are, how terrible everyone else is, which is another way of saying how wonderful we are? Politics, the economy, sports, movie stars, in our talking, what we read, what we post on social media. I know one devotee posts on Facebook, and I said to her, you know, I've never seen you post anything about Krishna. And we're often not aware. We're not listening to ourselves. What we say is a thermometer of who we are. So again, at this point, we have some genuine affection for Krishna, genuine affection for Guru, the holy name, holy places. We're working for Krishna. That's all there already at this point of Manah-siksa. This verse is not talking about gross materialistic people. It's talking about people who already have the first 3 verses of Manah-siksa, and they're still talking about materialistic things. And I really like what you said this morning. Right? If you're with devotees who aren't talking about Krishna, upgrade your association. It is so easy to get together with devotees, my dear friends, and never talk about Krishna. Have you ever noticed that? I loved being a nursery school teacher way back when, because I could just talk about Krishna. Nobody ever criticized me. I mean, I thought this is the best service in the whole movement. You just told all these Krishna Leela stories all day long. You know, notice, you're talking too much about Krishna. I mean, I actually have a friend who told me, she said, one of my friends said to me, you know, you're talking way too much about Krishna. You've got to stop this. Seriously, I'm not making this up. It's almost like we're so afraid of being sahajiyas, we don't want to talk about Krishna. What are we doing here? Majchita magata pranam bodhayantas prasparam katayantas chamam nityam tushanticha ramanticha. What are we talking about? Now, not only is that a barometer for where we are now, but my dear friends, it also determines where we go. What's that verse in the 8th chapter? Yes, so how are we going to develop our consciousness for our next body? What's the main thing developing our consciousness for our next body? Not just what we're thinking, but sound. What creates the universe? Sound. What's the first sound? And Prabhupada says in the 3rd canto, that's creating our universe. How do I create my thoughts? What are my thoughts? You said what I'm thinking. What are my thoughts? They are subtle sound, aren't they? What I talk about, what I hear, indicates who I already am, and it creates who I'm going to become. So Raghunath Das Goswami says, you may love Krishna and Guru and Lord Chaitanya and the holy places and the holy name and your mantra, and you may love all of that, and you may be following Rupa Goswami, and you may be working for Krishna's company, but what are you talking about? What are you hearing? And he gives a heavy example. He says, you're talking about materialistic things, that talk is a prostitute. That's a pretty heavy example. A prostitute tries to look very beautiful and attractive. Yes? And they tried to give you a promise, we're going to give you love and affection and a good time. Are they really going to give you love and affection and a good time? What are they going to do? Take your money. They're not only going to take your money, they're going to take your health, they're going to take your reputation, they're going to destroy your family, they may take your job, isn't it? How many people have lost everything because of consorting with a prostitute? Did the prostitute like them? No. In fact, prostitutes have only contempt for their customers. But very attractive. Right? Very attractive. We were living in an apartment on 57th Street years and years ago, decades ago, near the old 55th Street Temple. And you know, I hadn't paid that much attention. There was a laundromat downstairs, to the fact that these young women were often going down to the laundromat. I figured they just kind of lived in the building. And one day when I was doing my laundry, I saw there's a door opened and there was a brothel in there. And then I started noticing these women in the elevator. And I noticed that although they were dressed very attractively, if you listened to their speech and their demeanor, they were very hardened. They have to in that job. They had hardened their heart, yes? Does that make sense? Yes? So mundane talks are like that. Oh, it'll be so much fun talking about this. I'll get so much pleasure. But this jewel that we have of this affection we have for Krishna and Guru, this inclination we have to go to Vrindaban, it'll be stolen away. And we'll find that these talks didn't love us anyway. It was just a hard-hearted business deal.